we're not going to be political, so I have to watch myself.
We decided that because there's no better way to turn off half your audience.
Plus, it just wouldn't work. I have the personality. I tend to be an. I tend to not agree with whoever it is.
That.
I still have to talk about this to Mr. de Grandmont, but barring any unforeseen developments, gentlemen, I think we're sitting on a winner.
Welcome to Irritable Dad Syndrome. Business in the front, party in the back.
That's right.
Here are your hosts, Mike and Darin.
Hey, I'm Darin.
I'm Mike.
Welcome to Irritable Dad Syndrome. This is episode 160 something.
Whatever.
I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah.
This is a special episode. Usually Mike and I, we don't talk about politics or controversial subjects, but today we're talking about an issue that's prominent in the news. You may have seen or heard something about the writers' strike. You might have heard something about the actors' strike. The actors have decided to join the writers on the picket line, and you may not know what in the hell they're doing it for, what's going on. Is it about AI? Is it about residuals? There's a lot of things going on that...
How the hell am I going to get my shows?
Exactly. How's this going to affect me? What's the bottom line? So we have a guest joining us tonight. Our guest is, I know him. I've met him probably 20-some years ago. He's a professor at ETSU, where I went to college. And he is a famous actor.
He was on Remington Steele, for God's sake.
He was on Remington Steele.
Yes, I was.
He
That's
was on
awesome.
Silver Spoons. He was on Sabrina the Teenage Witch. He was on Alice. But people most famously know him for 2 episodes of a little show called Seinfeld. Okay? Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk about that. Anyway, our guest tonight is Patrick Cronin. And Patrick, thank you for joining us here on Irritable Dad Syndrome. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm delighted to be with 2 other irritable dads. I'm 82, and I'm more irritable than both of you together.
Well,
I can assure you of that.
When I called you earlier to make sure that you were still on for the show tonight, that's exactly what I was thinking. I'm like, God, this guy's pissed.
Well, you called because you wanted to make sure I was still alive.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
We started with that. So that's a good place.
If you happen to die in the middle of this interview, we're just going to continue. We need to get the full hour, so we're just going to keep you in.
We'll AI him in for the rest of the episode.
Try to pass in your most photogenic state that you can.
So Patrick, tell me a little bit. How long have you been? How long have you been an actor? How long have you been in SAG, the Screen Actors Guild?
Well, I actually started performing when I was 3. My father was a drunk. I'm a drunk, so we'll talk about that a little later, maybe.
Okay.
But anyway, my father taught me to sing 5 Irish songs. It was one of the 2 or 3 things he did that was not brutally bad. So he taught me Danny Boy, The Rose of Tralee, Boys from the County Cork, etc. And then in my neighborhood in Philadelphia, there were churches and bars on every street corner. So he carried me I was under 3. He carried me into this bar, ordered a shot and a beer. I can still see it. It was like 45 cents for a Corby's and a draft.
Ooh.
And then he got them and he said, all right, boy, start singing. Oh, the pale moon was rising above the great. So there were 8 men sitting at the bar and they said, give that man a drink. Oh, he's too young. Give this old man a drink. So my father got 5 shots, 5 beers, and then he carried me to another place where I did the same gig. So I always wanted to get on Leno or one of those shows and say, how'd you get it? You saw Richard Burton in Hamlet, didn't you? I said, yeah, I did. But I got into the business hustling drinks from my old man. I always thought that was a much better idea. I did a lot of that stuff as a kid. I was on the Horn and Hardart Children's Hour and all kinds of nonsense. Then I toured hospitals during the Korean War and sang for the vets, and then sort of got involved in theater in college and sort of fell in love. Well, actually, you'll like this story. I was 18, and the neighbor across the street was a stripper.
Hello.
Well, back in
I love it.
I already like this story. Yeah.
Oh, it was a great story. Her name was Rose LaRose. I mean, that was her stage name. I don't know what the hell her real name was.
She's still working down the street up here.
Yeah.
So she was pretty good age then. And I was 18. So she approached me about jazzing up her act by singing for her while she stripped. So I thought that was a pretty classy idea. What do I know?
That's what you want when you're watching a stripper, is just some 18-year-old kid standing over there singing.
This is before Motley Crue and Girls, Girls, Girls. It was Patrick Cronin and My Wild Irish Rose.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm on the side of the stage singing Unchained Melody in my little white dinner jacket.
That you just ruined that song. That song's done. I'm done. I can't listen to it now.
Anyway, we were making $250 a weekend. This is in 1959 when people were making $80 a week if they were lucky. So I did that for like 6 months. And then I thought, well, I don't think this is my career. Lenny Bruce started out.
It is a very good beginning to a Martin Scorsese film, though. You could already.
I think so.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got to college, fell in love with theater, graduated, went to grad school. Of course, I had a drinking problem. And by the way, to set that record straight, I will be 50 years sober on August 19th.
Oh,
so
wow.
I don't plan to die in your show.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
I'm going to make the 50-year mark. Anyway,
that's
I
amazing.
was drunk for 14 years, from 18 to 32. And so it plagued me. I went to grad school and sort of drank my way out. Then got a theater gig in Memphis, Tennessee at the Front Street Theater. That was in 1965, for which I got my equity card. That was my second union. My first union was AFM, American Federation of Musicians, which I joined in 1958 because I played bass and with bands and stuff.
Oh, wow.
And then in 1968, I joined AFTRA, the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. And then in 1970, I joined SAG. And I'm still a dues-paying member of all three unions. Or two now, because SAG and AFTRA merged. But let's talk about what is this strike about.
Yeah,
Nobody likes to talk about money, but I do. I made $75,000 a year as an actor from 1970 to 2000. The first 3 years, I made $2,500 a year. In the 80s and 90s, I was making $150,000 to $200,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
But when I looked back on my 30-year acting career, I averaged $75,000 a year, which means at 82, I collect $4,000 a month in pensions and $2,000 a month in Social Security, and I'm set for life.
Yeah.
I mean, unless things go to absolute hell. So I'm forgetting what audience we got. But in any event, the average actor in the 70s and 80s was making $2,500 a year, and it stayed there for many years, 10 years.
Wow.
Now it's about $25,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine living in LA or New York on $25,000 a year?
Well, it's
not possible.
Yeah, we live in Westchester, Ohio, and I can't imagine living on $25,000 here.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about, I've trained several actors who work at the Barter in Abington, Virginia, one of the great jobs in America.
Yeah.
They make $600 a week. That's huge money for that area. That means you're living on $30,000 a year. Does anybody want to live on $30,000? No. Hell, I'm not living on that in pension land.
Yeah.
I mean, so part of the strike is about the money has dried up. When I got to LA in 76, it was the beginning of the end of several things. It was the beginning of the end of the dominance of the star system in television and film. And also they created what was called top of the show. So when I did Alice, I got $2,500 for the week.
Okay.
That was top of the show. Ostensibly, if Frank Sinatra guest starred on Alice, he would get $2,500. Well, that's BS. You know it and I know it.
Yeah.
He would get $2,500 and two Mercedes and a Lamborghini.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and were the cars off the record, or were they?
Was the what off the record?
Like he would get the $2,500 and the cars, the Mercedes.
Yeah, but the cars are off the record.
Okay, off the
They were gifts.
Gotcha.
So I got $2,500 and he got $2,500 in case I got a lawyer to argue this.
Yeah.
But he got these cars and stuff.
Okay.
And,
And you got a Volkswagen Bug.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that remained in place. So again, the business keeps changing. I did 3 years on soaps. I was on General Hospital. I was on All My Children. I was on one of the NBC shows, the one that's still on.
Days of Our Lives?
Days of Our Lives. I was on there for a year. Well, there used to be 12 soaps. They're all gone except those 3 and Bold and the Beautiful. Yeah, so would you train an actor to do soap acting today? No. What for? There are none. Would you train an actor to do commercials? No, not really. There are very few today. If you're doing television and film, as I was, the big play was if you got in a national show like Seinfeld. They ended in the 90s, sort of. Friends, Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
I make $2,000 a year on residuals from Seinfeld alone.
It's amazing.
So you can imagine what the regulars on Seinfeld were making.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you something real quick. When you say residuals, is that money based on the sell of the DVD?
It's kept in record by Screen Actors Guild, now SAG-AFTRA. So when they air a show, and Seinfeld is hot because it's on several networks. Mm-hmm. It's streaming on, I believe, HBO or Netflix, I forget.
Yeah.
But it's getting top of the line exposure.
Right.
And they account that. So if, like, you work for like those shows that show Wild West and those shows, right. I'm on those too.
Right.
All in the Family and Silver Spoons. Mm-hmm. And for those, I get residuals that resemble 58 cents. But for Seinfeld, Rocky V, Star Trek, Home Improvement, I was a regular on Home Improvement. I did 6 of those. I usually get 2,000 or 3,000 a year from those shows.
Okay.
And then I get another 1,000 or so from the other shows. And then if I get really lucky, and they really up something like Full House, I got a big boost when they re-up that. All of that is gone for actors today. Nobody makes residual money anymore because the streaming services don't pay residual. So, for example, I trained an actor who did a starring role on a hit Netflix show last year, and she got $2,000 an episode.
Okay.
I was making that in 1976.
Yeah.
That doesn't
sound right. She's not making any residuals, no matter how much they show this series.
Yeah.
And they'll show it for infinity because it's a hit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She's going to make no more money out of it.
So the streaming services, do they? I know it's, and this is what Fran Drescher keeps talking about. The streaming services base everything on subscriptions, and so it's like if you sign up for Netflix, you sign up for it one time. So does any of that subscription money go to the hundreds of people who are on a Netflix original series or not?
Well, again, I'm as an 82-year-old retiree, I voted for the strike. I'm still a dues-paying member, and 97% of the union membership voted to strike. I think what the general public doesn't understand, and they should, is that for every Tom Cruise, there's 10,000 Pat Cronins. So for every actor who's making $40 million a picture with points in the aftermath, there's the guy making 32,000 or 68,000 with 2 kids in private school, or who's paying 6,000 a month rent in New York or LA.
Right.
I mean, it's not like I can live in Johnson City and work. That's not how this goes.
Right.
I have to live in New York, Chicago, or LA, or I can't work. I'm forced to live at a standard I can't afford. I'd love to move back to LA, for example. I sold my house for $675,000. I paid $280,000. When my wife was dying of lung cancer, my mortgage was $145,000. 5 years later, when she died, my mortgage was $395,000 because I kept refinancing to pay for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then I bailed out.
Yeah.
My house is now on the market. Perfectly nice house. Nowhere as nice as the house I'm living in Johnson City. It's now on the market for $2.5 million. And they haven't done anything to it.
Yeah.
It's a perfectly nice middle-class house.
Yeah.
My son, who's very successful as a book reader, James Patrick Cronin, he's read over 1,200 books on Audible and others. And he was okayed by the SAG-AFTRA credit union for a $1 million mortgage. He can't find a house in LA for $1 million. There are none.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're talking about an industry that's both insane in terms of what it's paying people and insane of where you're required to live in order to make a living. Somewhere along the line, the big shots, the Jeff Bezos and those people have got to give up the $8,000 a day salary and make sure some of that money goes to the people who are putting the shows on, the writers and the actors.
How likely do you think that's going to be that they do that?
Oh, very. I've been in a half a dozen strikes, and you don't always get what you want, but they can't win this. Certainly not with a double barrel. The only people who have agreed to a contract don't matter, the directors. Because they're not going to work without actors and writers, so they just sort of toss them whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
But they're going to have to compensate for the lack of residuals. They're going to have to pay better. Netflix is going to have to stop showing 42 Polish crime series and use that money. I love those shows, but if they got to cut back, then they're going to have to cut back on that.
Yeah, I don't know how they make those, because the crime shows, it's almost like the killer is carrying the camera with them at the time. And I'm like, how are you getting, what the hell?
Yeah.
You're in 4K, and how is that happening?
Well, there's something.
Well, some of them are wonderful. There's a couple of Norwegian shows I really love. But again, the bulk of my wife doesn't watch subtitles, so I watch those at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
But, well, if you're going to have shows like Mrs. Maisel and the other, Only Murders in the Building, you're going to have to pay those actors a decent wage.
Yeah.
And they're not doing that now.
Well, something
it costs you have to earn $35,000 in work to get medical coverage. I wouldn't have covered for half of my career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It used to be you only had to make $500 to get covered.
Yeah.
And then it was $2,500. By the time I left, it was $20,000. Well, now it's impossible. So not only are you not making a living, you're not making medical coverage.
Something I noticed on Netflix is a big, and I don't know a percentage, but a big chunk of the shows that they have are either reality television or contests. Like, is this cake? I mean, they've got a show where you people guess if it's cake or not. And
again, they don't have to pay those people.
Right.
And no actor is arguing about getting them paid.
Right.
I mean, reality television from the Survivor on has always hurt real actors. One of the downsides of the unions right now, from my perspective, is SAG-AFTRA let influencers in, no matter what skilled. It used to be as an actor, you certainly had to have some training, whether it was summer stock or, Judy and Mickey out in the boondocks singing Oklahoma. You had to have some training. And, now it doesn't matter. Are you selling soap on Twitter? And how many millions of people are buying this soap? I mean, hello, I'm glad I'm dying. It is time to go, no question.
But I mean, they're putting so many shows out that they put minimal money into the production of.
I mean, those cakes are hard to.
That is true. It is hard to tell which one a cake and which
but a
one
show like Mrs. Maisel is extraordinarily expensive to do.
Yes,
that kind of 50s. I mean, that's a major. And the show they did before, the Gilmore Girls. I'm addicted to the two writers who do those shows.
Yeah.
My daughter came home one time and I was crying at an episode of the Gilmore Girls, and she looked at me and she said, "You're a 13-year-old girl." I said, "What's wrong with that?"
Yeah.
I'm perfectly happy with that nomenclature.
You're listening to Irritable Dad Syndrome, the podcast that goes the extra mile for you.
The public, for example, my mother, I was a regular on Alice. It was my first big break. And I used to call my mother in New Jersey and say, Mom, I'm going to be on Alice next week. She was from Ireland. She said, oh, that's grand, boy, grand. I'll watch you on the TV. I said, thank you, Mom. So next week she'd call or I'd call. She said, I saw you on the television show. You were very good. Long pause. Have you gotten a job yet?
That's hilarious.
I mean, she didn't think I was getting any money for
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can't convince the average person that, I mean, again, I'm honest about what I made. From 1970 to 2000, my average earning was $75,000 a year.
Yeah.
This isn't fantastic money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good money, but it's not unbelievable.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, you
know,
see that in a lot of different professions like that. People, like with actors, they are thinking of the Tom Cruises,
yeah,
and Brad Pitt.
They think anybody who is on television it has, just a mansion.
If someone tells someone that they're a writer, they're thinking of Stephen King or
Yeah.
Dean Koontz or
Yeah.
those guys. Everybody's always thinking of those sides. So
Top of the
yeah,
game.
Well, I mean, in August, we'll make 30 years that I've worked in television. And
Okay.
28 and a half years of it was local television. And now my job is with Antenna TV and Rewind TV, making promos for classic television. So anytime we have friends over or we meet new people, they'll ask my wife, what do you do? And she says, I'm a nurse at Children's Hospital. And they said, oh, that sounds like, it's very admirable work and it must be tough being a nurse and this and that. And what do you do, Darin? I said, well, I work at a TV station. And they're really? And oh my God. And do you know,
was John Wayne gay?
yeah. And
That was the big one I got early on.
But there's that whole thing that television is just glamour and glitz and famous people and just everybody's just throwing money up in the air and watching it fall down. And that ain't the case.
yeah.
No, it's not.
It's just not.
The writers' union is called the Writers' Guild. The directors' union is called the Directors' Guild. And Screen Actors was the Screen Actors Guild. And then AFTRA, which was formed in the 1930s or 40s, was designed to take care of like clowns and weathermen and anchors.
Some
on
people,
television.
I like that clowns and weathermen are put in the same
Well,
category.
some people think they're the same thing.
Well, most actors who were in SAG felt that way. The Matthew Modine runs a group that wants to throw all the anchors and weathermen and clowns out and only have real actors, who do real acting.
Yeah.
And,
but my question is,
because a lot of if you're an anchor in Atlanta, you're making $4 million a year.
Wait, did it just hang up?
Are you still
just
there,
hung
Patrick?
Up. It just hung up.
hey, what happened?
Please stand by. We're experiencing technical difficulties. Thank you.
$20 later.
Okay, well, we did all right, guys.
Yeah.
Hey,
Well, that's all the time we have for you. It's
well, yes, thank you. God bless you and keep you on the life everlasting.
Try the deal, yeah.
all right.
another
We're back in. Okay.
All right, we're back.
Yeah. We've
No energy lost.
As I say,
I say.
we had some technical difficulties, but we are back with Patrick Cronin. And, and thank you again for being with us on Irritable Dad Syndrome.
Really a pleasure to talk about what I think for the average person may not mean a lot, but it will 6 months from now if we're still on strike and you're watching your 10th rerun of Downton Abbey.
Yeah, exactly.
As good as they are,
Yeah.
rewatching stuff is going to get, you're used to new shows streaming, and they're going to go away shortly, and the problem here is in order for this strike to work, the streaming services, Amazon and Netflix and HBO, they're going to have to open their books. If they're going to prove that they're not making the money we think they're making, the last figures I saw, there were trillions of dollars being made with actors and writers getting 2% of the income. If somebody is making $7,000 an hour, is, attacking people who aren't making that a year, there's something imbalanced here about, I've known rich people who are very nice and poor people who are idiots. So I'm not judging people by the salary they bring home.
Right.
But on the other hand, in a strike like this, that's the thing. Unions have always made a difference. When SAG was created in 1930, FDR invited Eddie Cantor, who was the first president of SAG, to go to his estate in Georgia to honor this new union. That if you were a member of SAG in the 30s, you were banned from films. I mean, they had secret meetings in Robert Montgomery's house. I mean,
Wow.
it was deadly being in the union. I mean, just as it was for coal miners.
Yeah.
In West Virginia. We forget. Unfortunately, we're determined to not remember our life. I mean, when I was growing up as a kid in Philadelphia, my mother was a cleaning lady. And we'd go to shops to get jobs. And there'd be big signs in the window, no mix need apply. And I said to him, I was 6 or 7 years old. And I said, Mom, what's a mick? And she said, oh, well, that's like the N-word for Irish people. We're mix. Oh, because a lot of our names are like McDonough. Oh, I see. I get it.
Yeah.
But as a 6-year-old, I thought, gee, I don't feel very good right now. That's our history.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we should celebrate that on the 4th of July, but I am saying we shouldn't be denying it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's wrong when we try to deny what was there.
Right.
When we've gotten better than that, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm going off on a weird tangent.
No.
It's
fine.
okay. It's okay.
So anyway, to get back to where we were, the writer's strike, of course, has more significance for the viewer.
Mm-hmm.
You can fake it with actors. You can get bad actors, and most people won't know the difference. Look at who's become stars.
Yeah.
So let's not worry about the judgment quotient out there. But on the other hand, you can't fake that. You were talking about AI.
Yes.
Somebody posted today, and it's true. AI produces mediocrity. If what you want in your life is dead middle, then you're going to get dead middle.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at all the AI, a lot of the AI art, and I say this with one of our T-shirts actually being AI art, but it looks like
as a joke.
Yeah, it looks like when you go to like the county fair, the airbrush T-shirts with like the heart and like a fish or something.
Exactly.
That's what it looks like, and it's like if you created an art museum and had all the airbrushed art, I mean, it's kitschy and it's interesting, but it's not actually art.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not art.
At some point, you're going to get sick of seeing that, and AI can really at this point. I mean, I'm sure in the future it's going to continue to get better and better, but right now it's just it's approximating. Yeah. It's using everything that's come before and approximating things. It's not really creating.
It is part of tonight's discussion. My son James Patrick Cronin has an alternate name, which I don't think I'm going to share now. A lot of people know it.
Okay.
But he has a nom de guerre, nom de plume, for his erotic readings.
I had one of those, but it was removed.
My son makes a lot of money as his alternate self.
Okay.
He's got 3,000 people on his Patreon page.
Oh, wow.
Paying $100 a month to listen to him talk.
Okay.
As this other guy.
We have 13.
Yeah.
I've got 12 on one site. So my son has just hired, because they're stealing his other guy to make books with his voice sounding like his other guy.
Yeah.
And he's got he's paying a guy a lot of money in LA to take these people to the cleaners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's going to win, because you can't steal somebody's identity without paying.
Right.
Well, you just can't.
One of the things that Fran Drescher had mentioned is that they want actors now to come in for a day. And are they seriously asking to scan you and then to use your likeness from until the end of time?
Yes. And that's not going to happen. I did a series of commercials for Ace Hardware.
Okay.
I was the Ace Hardware guy one year. And there were big 6-foot statues of me outside Ace Hardware store.
Mm-hmm.
So I was paid a sum for that. I forget, $10,000, I think. But that was for the use within 2.5 years. Well, after that, I found it still outside stores, and I complained to the union, and I got another 10 grand.
Yeah.
There's a deal you have. You can use my likeness for X number of units, and then you can't. I had throat cancer in 2001. I was very well treated at the Johnson City Medical Center. I'm 21 years cancer-free. So they asked me to do a commercial.
That's fantastic, by the way.
Yeah.
Huh?
That's fantastic,
thank
by
you.
the way.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah.
And so, Kyle Covenant was my radiologist, brilliant. And I said that on Facebook and was praising the service I got. So they came to me from, it wasn't Ballad then, Fountain Health or Mountain, I don't know what the hell it was. Anyway, they came to me and they said, we'd like you to do a commercial. I said, I'd be charmed. I'd be honored to do that. And they said, how much? I said, $10,000. Never heard from them again. Well, what they don't understand is that I was glad to do it, but that's a career ending.
Yeah.
See, what people who aren't actors don't understand, there's nothing worse than being recognized. For example, the last big job I lost was as a spokesman for Staples. So it was down to me and another guy. We were going in and out, in and out. They were trying to make up their mind. And the last time I went in to read, one of the producers said, oh my God, you're the bra creator on Seinfeld. I was done.
Yeah.
That ended my chance at that big paying job.
Yeah.
You don't want people to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tell the students I've trained, they have no right to know things about you, not even your age.
Mm-hmm.
So when they ask you, what have you been doing? Make up stuff. Because they have no right to know.
Yeah.
So when I audition for movies, they'll say, so what have you been doing, Pat Baby?
They call you Pat Baby.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh God, yes. That's if you're lovable.
Uh-huh.
So we used to have a saying in LA. My agent called this morning. Hello, she lied. No truth there at all.
So you
if
effectively
I'm interviewing for a film, I say I'm doing an off-Broadway show about Shakespeare meets Marlowe, and you can see them glass over because they don't care about theater at all. And if I'm auditioning for a play in New York, they say, so what have you been doing? I'm up for this series in LA, and you can see them go, oh God, I hope he doesn't talk long.
Yeah.
You just tell them you're doing something on another coast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they don't, because you can say, like, for example, I didn't want to do Married with Children. I found the show disgraceful. For a guy who did Saved by the Bell, for me to have standards is really weird. But I had my own standards.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do Married with Children.
Everybody's got a line somewhere.
Yeah.
That was my line.
Yeah.
So I go in and I audition, and I was really good. And I thought, oh, they're going to hire me. So then they said, so what have you been doing? So I said, well, I just did my second episode of Seinfeld. I'm a regular on Home Improvement as Sparky Henderson. So I've done 6 of those. Lost the job.
Lost it. Wow.
No way they were using. First of all, if I had told Tim Allen that I had done 2 Seinfelds, I wouldn't have worked on that show.
Huh.
You'd think
That's
that they
interesting.
You'd think that they would know that. I mean,
they don't have to look into stuff, and you don't have to say.
Yeah, it's.
I mean, Jerry and Tim were very competitive. On Seinfeld, they were supposed to do 10 episodes with me cheating with what's her name's wife. It's in the scene where we do the bro or the man's ear.
mm-hmm.
And at the end, he says something about, I'm really glad you're seeing what's his name's wife dating her. And they were going to do a 10-episode link, but she wanted more money, and they said no. So I got screwed out of 10 episodes.
Who's the wife that you're talking about?
She was married to George's father, to Jerry.
Oh, Estelle Harris.
Estelle.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we were going to have 10 episodes of dating, and being in love and all that. And she wanted more money, and they said no.
So they were going to have George's mom have an affair on
With me.
Seinfeld. Okay.
Yes.
I had never
That's
heard
awesome.
that.
This portion of our show is brought to you by Blockbuster Video.
One of the reasons I worked a lot is I was one of the nicest people on the set you could ever meet. And I told my students that Willie Loman is right. He just wasn't any good at it. You got to be nice. People have to like you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He's right. You have to be well liked. That's the reason I did 6 Home Improvement. I knew a dozen actors who were better than I was, but they didn't work much because they were a pain in the ass. Does anybody like being around a pain in the ass? No, nobody.
Well,
likes
I mean, I'm with this guy.
well,
but,
but what am I? Who knows?
Wow.
And there is love, isn't there?
yeah.
There is.
Isn't that the final analysis?
Absolutely.
The trick on this, I was on the Newhart show, and this actor was trying to make a friend with Bob. And finally, Bob turned to him and said, I don't want to talk to you. I don't even see my wife. This is my 5th series. I don't have time for new friends.
It's like something I would say.
Newhart said that.
I mean, I was very, Tim Allen and I got along pretty well. We were both blue collar guys. He for Detroit, me from Philly.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're making millions of dollars and you're talking to somebody who's making thousands,
Yeah.
I had a woman, I coached baseball for 10 years in LA. My team was Josh Groban, Jake and Maggie Gyllenhaal,
Oh,
and
wow.
my 2 sons.
Mm-hmm.
And Brendan Ryan, who played for the Seattle Mariners. And that was my team.
Wow.
And so, anyway, great fun. So there was a woman whose kid was kind of awkward and big. And I used to, pick him every year to play for us because he was sweet. And I'd stick him in right field, where he didn't get hurt
Mm-hmm.
or hurt anybody else. And she always gave me nice presents, which I was Mont Blanc pens and the like. And at one point she said to me, she was very rich. And she said, I'd really love to be friends with you and your wife, but you don't have any money.
Oh, wow.
And I go to $3,000 a plate chicken dinners every week. And that's where I meet my friends. And I'm not going to pay for you and you can't afford it.
Jeez.
Wow.
Well, isn't that fair though?
Yeah, it's honest, I guess.
Yeah, but I just
Well, I loved it.
you.
So what's she going to do? Pretend to be my friend and then never call me? I mean,
No,
I had a lot of rich friends who I never called or who never called. I mean, what do you do with, there was an agent who had his kids at my son's school. He had Monets and Monets and Lichtensteins he had $40 million on one wall.
Oh my God.
Wow.
I mean, what was I going to do with him or he with me?
Yeah. You want to go bowling?
Money
Well,
does separate you out, alas.
Yeah. I guess that's true.
It really
Yeah.
does. But in any event, the AI thing, I think, is going to die in the water right now. Because once the strike is over, the lawyers are going to come after those people. I think the strike will end. It'll take a while because the writers are wanting more in residuals than the actors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I think they're going to be focused on settling with the writers and not worry too much about the actors. But the writers and the actors are now joined together. That's the thing that people don't understand. If you're an actor, you're a blue-collar union guy. You're trying to make a buck.
It is interesting getting your perspective on this because, I'm learning a lot more about the perspective of someone in the business versus, what we see. But
Right.
I pulled up a picture of Peter Cushing,
Mm-hmm.
which was the first time that I felt uneasy with seeing an actor portrayed as CGI because Peter Cushing, with Star Wars Rogue One, he's in a scene for 2 or 3 minutes and you see the back of his head and I'm like, oh, that's Grand Moff Tarkin. They've got somebody with it. Turns around and I was like, oh, wow, they've recreated him.
Yeah. I mean,
And
now with his family's permission.
Yes, and they got money for that.
Right.
What's his name? And Scorsese did it too in his last picture.
The Irishman.
The Irishman.
Yeah.
Irishman.
Yeah,
those men allowed themselves to be euthaned.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
And that was also done with permission and with payment.
Mm-hmm.
And what's his name? Raiders of the Lost Ark guy allowed himself to be euthaned.
Yeah, Harrison
Again,
Ford.
also with payment. And
yeah, but at what point does the fine print enter into the contract that says we have your likeness and we in this and we use it in
the contract is already in place. I was saying about my wife, Lord rest her. She was a regular on Happy Days and on Wonder Woman. I've got a great story about that.
Oh, okay.
She called the show Wonder Tit, which cost her job, but that's another story. Well, it was Wonder Tit, really. Linda was not a nice person.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
Again, instant stardom, sort of. Anyway, my wife was on Happy Days. She was Marcia the Car Hop on roller skates. She did, I think, 60 episodes. And actually made the mistake of quitting the show to do Wonder Woman, which only lasted a year for her.
Yeah.
Where she could have been on Happy Days for 14 years and we could have had a bigger home. But in any event, she got residuals for only half those episodes. Because in 1976, Screen Actors Guild negotiated a contract that said that all shows done from this day on will be in perpetuity. So Rocky V, I have 2 lines in Rocky V. I'm right in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And Stallone is standing there and says, I want to fight a guy in Vegas. I said, Mr. Stallone, you have cavum septum pellucidum. You will not be fighting in Vegas or anywhere else. I have made over $25,000 for that.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Because every time they redo a new Rocky or they regroup and sell it as a package, I get a big fat residual check.
Well, I will say I'm a huge Rocky fan. I've only seen Rocky V once.
Yeah,
I mean my jam is all the rest of them. But I do when you, as soon as you said the line, I remember the scene.
Cavum septum. I thought to myself, why did they cast me? I'm the only actor in Hollywood who can say this.
My thought was, there's no way Rocky knows what the hell you're talking about.
That was my first idea.
No.
In fact, off the camera, he turned to me or somebody and said, what does that mean? I said, you're punch drunk. Means your next blow to your head is going to knock your marbles out.
Exactly.
But again, so much of it was fun. Oh, there was a story there. There was a beautiful girl on that set who's an extra or atmosphere, whatever they call themselves. And she was gorgeous. And to note that somebody is very beautiful in Hollywood is silly. Because everybody's beautiful, except the 3 of us. But anyway, there was this girl on the set. And even the gay guy I was playing with said, gosh, she's gorgeous. I said, yeah, isn't she? Anyway, Stallone enters about 2 hours late. And who cares? It's his movie. I don't care how late he is.
Yeah.
And he was nice. He came in with his entourage of 42 guys, knuckles dragging him. And so, anyway, he goes past this really gorgeous girl. I think he just said hello or something. He wasn't there long enough to say anything terrible. So he walked back with his group, and she stood up and said, Mr. Stallone. I thought, oh, God, we're going to sit through 2 hours of a sexual harassment speech. Oh, no, I have dinner tonight. So, anyway, she said, and we're all looking now, of course, all 200 of us. And she says, Mr. Stallone, there's nothing I wouldn't do for my SAG card.
Hello.
Oh,
okay.
Okay. Now, I wouldn't be able to tell that story at school anymore. I used to tell it because when you enter this business, that's the kind of stuff that goes on.
Well, that's what took down Harvey Weinstein.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But I turned to the guy I was with and said, actually, she's making a mistake. Stallone can't get her a SAG card, but the first AD could. All he has to do is give her a line. She's got a SAG card.
Yeah.
So,
I remember.
But I mean, the business is rough. You have thousands of actors trying. I used to audition. There'd be 300 people up for one part. and I scored over 200 of them. If you hit 1 out of 10, you could make a living.
Yeah.
Not so much now, though.
I remember Tom Hanks.
Pay scale.
Tom Hanks was talking about his kids, and they asked how he got him.
He was wonderful. I was in Splash with him.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
I have a funny story. Quick. I'm on Melrose Boulevard, and my 2 sons are with me. They're like 8 and 9, and there's in front of us is Tom Hanks and his wife Rita. And my son said way too loudly, "Oh, look, Dad, there's your friend, Tom Hanks." I thought I'm going to be arrested. So Tom came over to us. I thought, oh, this could go very badly. Said, "I'm sorry, you were wonderful in Splash. I don't remember your name." I thought, he's not going to arrest me. Good.
Nice.
I said, "Pat Cronin, I was the guy who caught them." "Oh, yes, you were wonderful." And he went away and went off to a restaurant.
Yeah.
And my son said, "See, Daddy's your friend."
That's awesome.
Thank you, son.
But yeah, Tom Hanks said that, the way he helped his kids was he gave them all one part. And he says, "I gave them their first part. And as soon as you get a part with a reading line, then you get your card." And then he says, and after that, it was entirely up to them.
I did the same with James. My sons they did over $200,000 worth of commercial work. My son James did one for Nestle's chocolate chips that's on YouTube. All my stuff's on YouTube, by the way.
Okay.
I was a commercial king in the 70s and 80s. And my other son was in Jerry Maguire.
Oh, wow.
It's a funny story. He goes in to read, and he goes with my wife because kid can't go alone, obviously. So he's there. He's 10 or 11. And so they hide those scripts, and then because the people steal them. Mm-hmm. So they come out with a side, sometimes even a fake side. And so this was for the opening scene in Jerry Maguire. Remember that? You got to get my dad to stop playing football.
Yeah.
He's got 12 contracts with Nike. Fuck you, Jerry. Fuck you. So that was the scene.
Yeah.
So that my son they were going to do it with a younger kid, and my son was up for that. So they give him the script, and he looks at it, and he goes, "Ooh, hey, Mom, look at this." She looks down, she goes, "Oh, well, you'll have to say it, Charlie. It's in the script." Okay. So he went in with the casting director, and he was in for about 20 minutes. That's a long time. And he came out and he's beaming. And we always had a rule: don't say anything in the building. Mm-hmm. So you don't know who's around. So they got outside onto the street. And so my wife turned and said, "So, Charlie, how did it go?" He said, "It was great." She said, "I was the best fuck you of the day."
That's awesome.
Oh, man.
He didn't get that part. They decided to go older. But hey, he's in the movie.
But that's a win.
He's in the airport. He comes up to Cuba Gooding and he says, "Hey, are you Hootie?" and the guy says, "No, I'm not Hootie." And Charlie goes, and walks away. 2 huge laughs. I was there the first night they showed it at the Directors Guild. I'm sitting in my seat, "It's my kid. That's my kid."
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was cool. He did a series with Don Rickles and
oh, wow.
Yeah, called Daddy Dearest.
Mm-hmm.
He did 8 episodes. I don't know. They both had, the deal was if they auditioned, they had to do it.
Yeah.
But the day they said, "I don't want to do it," it was done. And then he started playing sports. And so that was the end of it.
Yeah.
This portion of Irritable Dad Syndrome is brought to you by Kenner Toys. They made the Star Wars figures. Now, back to the show.
Well, Patrick, we're almost out of time, but I wanted to ask you one thing before we go. Yeah, and you probably don't remember this, but it was because it was over 20 years ago when we actually met. And I've told the story on the podcast before, but I was back at ETSU for the ASI picnic. ASI is Alpha Sigma Iota. That's the broadcasting fraternity. So I was there at the picnic, and that's the first time that I met you. And I met you that day. And then there was a party later on that evening, and I was walking back to my car, and it was at night on ETSU campus, and I passed you up, and I said, "Hey, Patrick, I don't know if you remember me, but I saw you earlier at the party. I'm Darin." And you said, "Hi." do you have a car? I said, yeah. He said, can you drive me over by the tennis courts? I said, sure. So
I'm 80.
I
I'm
could
82
have
years
been
old.
I could have been a serial killer. You could have been a serial killer. But
I
regardless,
used
I
to
drove you
thumb
to
in
your
Johnson
car.
City till the cops stopped me. Because I thumbed in L.A. all the time.
Yeah.
And because I've never driven a car at
Yeah.
82, I've never driven a car. And so I was thumbing here in Johnson City, and the cops came by and said, "You can't do that, boy." Why not? I can't drive. He said, "Well, get a cab."
Yeah.
So
But
I gave it up.
every time your episode of Seinfeld comes on, I tell people, hey, I drove him. He was in my car.
I do have to tell you, my audition for Seinfeld was extraordinary.
Oh, I can't wait.
In the 30 years I was in LA, 25 years I was in LA, I met two geniuses, Larry David and James Burrows.
Okay.
Those were geniuses.
From Cheers.
James directed me on Cheers. And I knew his dad, Abe, who directed a lot of Broadway shows. But James was a master of the sitcom, master of it.
Mm-hmm.
Larry was just a producing genius.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he's that mean. He's the guy on Curb. He really is that guy. I mean, he'd make you guys look nice. So, so I go in to read. I've got my script, and I always treated these shows with great respect, you know, and especially a show like Seinfeld. I really admired it. It was late in the run. They had about 10 guys before me who all had specials on Comedy Central. I mean, these were major comedy stars, and they're going in to read. And of course, these are paper walls in a building which is crowded with too many people, and they're tearing the place apart, screaming with laughter. And I'm looking at the script going, this guy, he wants to make men's brassieres.
Uh-huh.
What the hell's funny about that? Well, I guess I'll find out.
Yeah.
So I walk in and they introduce you, you know, and Jerry Seinfeld is there, and Larry David, the writers. And you're reading with a casting director who isn't particularly good. She's nice, but she's not a good actor. So we start the scene. So what do you see in the back? Hooks, Velcro, you know, doing the scene. And the room is dead silent. I didn't get one laugh in the entire audition, where the other 10 actors had been there, were tearing the place up.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, I'm going to have to burn my SAG card up in West LA. This is nonsense. So in the silence that went on, Larry David said, "That's very funny."
I can see it. I can see him say that.
And 2 minutes or 2 seconds later, Jerry Seinfeld said, "Yes, Larry, very funny." And what they'd been laughing at were the actors doing comedy bits.
Uh-huh.
I played Sid Farkas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sid was real to me.
Yeah.
His needs were real to me. His desire to sell brassieres was real to me.
Yeah.
And it was based on Larry David sold brassieres one summer
Mm-hmm.
in a place in Saks or one of those places.
Yeah.
And so it was rooted in reality, and I made Sid as real as I could make it.
Yeah.
And that's why I got the part, because I was funny. I was funny in the material,
That's
not
awesome.
outside of it.
Well, and you know, if you know, when you ask people what their favorite episodes, or not so much their favorite episodes of Seinfeld, but the ones that they remember, it's like there's the dentist, and then the
Soup Nazi,
the soup Nazi,
Nazi.
and the bro or the man bra.
Yeah.
It's one of those episodes that just comes up. So
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
in one of the most memorable episodes of Seinfeld. And
I'm really thrilled. I also did a very memorable Star Trek TNG, and that was a great fun too.
Yeah.
I was on the last season of that, and they were going insane. They couldn't wait for this to be over.
Yeah.
And so in between shots, Jonathan Frakes was playing Juliet and Patrick Stewart was playing Romeo. They kept doing the entire play between scenes all over the set.
Yeah.
And at one point, Patrick jumped off the platform into Frakes' arms and kissed him. And he looked around at everybody and said, "It's all right. I'm just in touch with my feminine side.
That's funny.
It was fun working. I loved Hollywood. I really did. I was on, with Red Fox, whom I adored. God, I loved Red Fox. I could have been Bob Hope. I hadn't been black. I'd have been Bob Hope. Well, yeah, but we liked you, Fred. You were funny. I bought your albums under the counter when I was 8.
See,
but I could have been Bob Hope.
If I had met Red Fox, I would have been one of those guys that just begged him, would you please call me a big dummy?
Oh, yeah.
Please?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was wonderful. I did do a lot of cocaine, though, so we did our show. We'd start rehearsal at 10, and we didn't break for lunch until 2, because when he came back,
he was blitzed.
There was nothing was going on of any note. So, but he was fun to work with.
I got to meet one time. I met Gordon Jump from WKRP in Cincinnati.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know if you ever got to work with him.
I didn't work with him, but I'd see him at auditions.
But he came by the TV station for an interview. He was the Maytag repairman.
Yep.
Right.
He did those commercials, and he was in town for an opening of some appliance store. I can't remember, H.H. Gregg or some appliance store. And I walk into our studio, and there's Gordon Jump, Arthur Carlson, just sitting right there, no handlers, nothing. And I approached him, and I was nervous. I was really nervous because it's like I didn't know. It's like you don't want to meet your heroes. He may be you don't know.
You don't know.
And he was so nice, and I said, and I didn't want to ask him to say the line because I figured he's probably tired of hearing people ask him to say the line. But I said, the episode of TV Guide recently came out where they picked Turkeys Away as one of the greatest episodes of all time, and he says, "Can you believe it? That a line like that, an episode like that wasn't intended to be that funny, but, as God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly." And I'm like, he said the line. I was so excited. But he gave me an autograph and was just as nice a person as I could hope to have met.
I would say 95% of the people I met and worked with, including Jerry Seinfeld and Tim Allen, were delightful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Hanks was even better than that. He's just a generous, kind. There were certain things you couldn't do. Intruding in their lives was one of them.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you were nice to them and you want to, like I have several signed copies of Tim's book and Jerry's book, they didn't mind doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It was nice. I miss it a lot, but I had a great run, and Silver. I mean, we could talk about these shows. It's weird, some of them.
Yeah.
That are still out there.
Yeah.
The working actor, is making 50,000. He needs to make 75.
Yeah.
Or 100.
Yeah.
To survive today.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're on Broadway, you get $2,000 a week as a minimum wage to be in a Broadway show. And you can't get an apartment in New York for under $4,000 a month, and that's a studio. So how far does $8,000 a month go when your agent takes 10%? You might have a manager. You're not taking home very much.
I mean, you're probably in your 30s and 40s and still have a roommate, so that you can afford.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
those are the people for whom the strike is for.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's not for Tom Hanks or Tom Cruise or any of the lucky Toms in the world.
Well,
I hope for their sake we get what we deserve.
And I hope you agree with me when I say this. The reason why this strike is important is because, television and films, not only does it entertain us, but in a sense, and for many, many years, it's brought people together. Families sit Families sit together and watch Everybody Loves Raymond, and they enjoy. It's just a way of people coming together.
Yeah,
and it's very
exactly.
It's I think so.
It matters.
I think it
just
does.
matters.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you guys matter because you're carrying the torch too.
Well, we're trying.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that.
We definitely are trying. Mike and I started this podcast in September. Will be 3 years.
Yeah.
And we do it because we love doing it.
Yeah.
We enjoy hanging around with each other, and we just enjoy it. So, and if there's
and
people who download
being
it
with you guys tonight, so thank you.
We're happy that you're here.
Yep.
Thank you so much. So, so everybody out there listening, this has been a fantastic hour and a half with Patrick Cronin. or how I can't remember how long we've talked. We had technical
whatever it
difficulties.
is.
Yeah.
It's been a fun time, and we want you to know that if you go to irritabledadsyndrome.com, you can listen and download every single episode. We had somebody last week download like 90 episodes.
Yeah, somebody had a stroke
Fantastic.
or something. They just passed out on the download key and hit them all.
Just kept hitting enter. So
Yeah.
But anyway, we thank you for listening, and we hope to see you again on Irritable Dad Syndrome.
Before we go, can someone give me a ride home? I'll be waiting downstairs. Thank you.
You'll edit some of this nonsense out.
I mean, I would say my worst fear is that he thinks we just hung up on him.
Right.
The second worst is that he's still talking. He's just going to keep going. These guys are boring as hell. They're not responding to anything. I'm just going to keep going.
Please stand by. We're experiencing technical difficulties. Why can I not say technical?
Simply stated, Mr. Balboa, it means that you suffered some damage to the brain.
I knew it was going to be good. I didn't realize it was going to be this good. This is really, really entertaining.
Well,
Yeah.
you got that burlesque girl story, if nothing else. I don't usually tell that one.
You came out the gate swinging with
Yeah.
that. I could just see you
Anyway,
in
no,
a
this
little
was
white
great
suit.
fun.
That's hysterical.
It was. An Unchained Melody has been ruined for you.
Oh, yeah, it's gone. It's done.
I took a
Yeah.
good song away from you.
Yeah.
Ooh,